Navajo Nation. I have a company called Roanhorse Consulting, in which the focus of my business is really to grow Native Indigenous entrepreneurs to be able to solve our local challenges. Another project, which I'll be talking about later, is I also work with a program called Cultivating Coders, where we create, we bring coding, high quality coding to rural and isolated communities throughout the country. And I will be able to tell more stories about it. So this morning we are actually talking about leveraging digital tools for social and economic good, and we have a pretty incredible panel today. So I'm going to go first with introducing each one, and sort of the format will be that we'll share a little information. Each of the panelists will be able to tell a lot more about what they're doing and be able to provide some examples of digital tools they've used and seen applied, and how social and economic good has come of it. So the first person I'm going to start with is Jeff Ward. Jeff is the founder of Animikii Indigenous Technology. He is Ojibwe Métis, originally from Manitoba, and now lives and works in Victoria, BC, on traditional territory of the Lekwungen Nation. Animikii is an Indigenous-owned social enterprise, certified B Corp, and a CCAB certified original business that works with leading Indigenous-focused organizations from all industries to drive positive change for Indigenous peoples through technology. He founded Animikii in 2003 and has orchestrated and managed its growth ever since. Everything Jeff does in business is geared towards uplifting his family, communities, and Indigenous peoples. So Jeff, I don't know if you want to start, and then we'll go through for each person.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, so I'm down here from Canada, and so grateful to be amongst some amazing company, learning a lot. Yeah, so actually this week, we celebrate at Animikii our 14th year in business, serving Indigenous communities and entrepreneurs and governments to develop technology. So I'm a software developer. I build apps, write custom software, and have been doing so for pretty much the majority of my professional career, and majority of my adult life working in Indigenous communities. So the kind of apps and software we build are range from online training within education and health system to custom databases for First Nations and for communities. So we've built a lot of tools for social and economic good, and happy to share perhaps in detail a couple examples later.
Here we go. Okay, so the next person I want to introduce is actually on screen here. His name is Jesse Fiddler. He's involved with building community networks and ICT applications through KNET for the last 20 years. Originally from Sandy Lake First Nation, Jesse understands the challenges Indigenous communities face when building their own networks. As a jack of all trades, his experience ranges from local development within the community to regional development of ICT projects across Northern Ontario and Canada. With his close relationship to the land, Jesse believes that community-owned networks and use of ICTs in our Indigenous communities lets us keep our connection to our traditional areas while participating in a global economy. Hold on, Jesse, we can't hear you. One sec.
How are you now?
There you
go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, great. Hi, yeah. So yeah, my name is Jesse Fiddler from Sandy Lake. Wichiman, the Distuskas, Nagobadam Nemiban. My Anishinaabe name is Wichima, which means the helper or the friend of everybody. and my clan is the Red Suckerfish clan in Sandy Lake. So I'm calling you from Sulikout, Ontario, which is in the northern parts of Ontario, and I work with KNET services, and what we are is we're an IT company or a department that's part of a larger tribal council. And if you guys are familiar with tribal councils, I'll just show you a map of our tribal council here. So our tribal council has 6 communities, which is Fort Severn, which is on the shore of Hudson Bay. We've got 5 other inland communities, which is Keewaydin, Deer Lake, North Spirit Lake, McDowell Lake, and Poplar Hill. And so our tribal council is called Keewaydin, which means Northern Chiefs. So sometimes we interchange the name with Northern Chiefs Tribal Council. So our tribal council, we provide services to our First Nation communities, very wide aspect of services, which includes health, education, telecommunication, public works, and lots of other services. So let me just so that's our main our First Nation communities that own KNET. But in addition to working with our communities, we also provide network services to First Nation communities right across Ontario. And so KNET's some of our primary services that we provide is network connectivity. And with that network connectivity, that gives our First Nation communities access to the internet, as well as really powerful communication tools that they can use in all other aspects of their community, which is their health and their education, administration, justice, and all those services. So some of the network services, like the actual technical and digital tools that we use, we provide cellular service. So a number of our First Nation communities have cell phones with data on it. They have access to the internet. They have access to our video conferencing network. I'll switch this back to me. Hold on a second. I'm trying to figure this one out. Oh, these tools. Too many tools. Yeah. Anyways, so we provide a number of different technical services over on our network. We also provide, help desk, technical support, training, and the way we do this is we have a partnership, and our partnership is with each First Nation. And the way it works is each First Nation owns their own infrastructure. So they own their own local loops. So everything that's within their community, it's owned by them. So I know many people call this the first mile because it's it's the most important mile that works. That's important because with that local infrastructure, if that local infrastructure is the best it can be, then your access to the rest of the services and infrastructure that come into the community will be that much better. So with that important infrastructure, then the rest of the tools fall into place. And some of the other tools that we've been using over the years, we've been using in different parts. I'll give you an example. One is Keewaydin Internet High School, and that's been running since the year 2000. So it's already been 17 years that we've had this Internet High School. And this Internet High School is very important for our communities because the majority of our communities, they're all remote. They're remote, they're small, and they don't have access to regular services that urban people do, like urban centers. So many of our First Nations, they don't have a high school on the reserve. So the internet high school, it fills that void, and it gives our children access to an education where they can be with their family, with their community. And for me, it's important that, our kids have that connection with the family, the community, as well as the land, because those are some of the most beneficial things that we have available to us to provide a good life and to grow as people. And these digital tools are some of the most useful tools that we can use in remote and rural areas to bring these services to us. So the KNET Internet High School is just one example. Sorry about that, I keep getting phone calls here. So that's one example, and the KNET Internet High School runs over the internet. We have classrooms in 11 communities. Where's my mute here?
Put them on.
We have 11 classrooms in 11 communities, and there's a teacher in each one, and they provide the instructions over the internet to other communities, as well as providing instruction to and support to their local.
Wow, you're blowing up. They provide that local support there. So that's one example of some of the digital tools. And then they use a lot of different communication tools. One in particular that you guys can make use of is called the Moodle e-learning platform. And Moodle is an open source e-learning software that many institutions use for delivering e-learning services. And we've been using Moodle since 2004. So we've done a lot of development with it. We do a lot of in-house development for open source software and making customizations and making it work for us. Jesse,
So that's one example.
Jesse, could you spell that real quick? I feel like we heard it, but if you could spell what that open source platform is, the name of it.
Moodle,
Yeah.
M-O-O-D-L-E.
M-O-O-L-B-E? D-L-E, okay.
M-O-O-D-L-E.
Moodle, got it.
It's like doodle, but with the M.
Moodle, got it. Okay.
We've been using that software for e-learning for quite a number of years. So another example of leveraging digital tools in our communities here is e-health and telemedicine. So we do run with rest of our tribal council. We have a health department, as well as we have a telemedicine network. So it's the KO telemedicine network, and we provide telemedicine services to, I think it's over at least 25 or more First Nation communities that are in the north. Where's my camera here? I'm just trying to get rid of my screen sharing here. Oh, here we go. All right, coming back to me. All right. We do provide telemedicine services, and we provide the support for the telemedicine network to these First Nation, to our First Nation communities in the north. I'm just going to drag over this card here. So here's an example. Like this here is a telemedicine card that we have in each health center, and in each community, in each health center, they have a local person. It's called a telemedicine coordinator that's hired to administer and coordinate, visits with doctors and patients in the community. So it gives people in the community that option to have, follow-up consultations with doctors rather than leaving their home and community for, a week at sometimes, because in order to access medical services like doctors and, any specialized equipment, they have to travel to either an urban center like Sulakot or Thunder Bay or Winnipeg to access these medical services. So telemedicine gives us an option to, to have those appointments with doctors that are not necessarily essential for them to be in person, so they can do all their examinations by video conferencing. So that's one tool. We also use video conferencing for for health workshops. So we have a lot of ongoing workshops that people can participate in communities on different various subjects of health. We even run AA meetings over video twice a week, and we have a lot of other communities that participate that way. So that's just kind of some of the uses. The other uses we use video for too. We use video for telejustice. So we have courtroom sessions happen over by video, so people can actually see the judge by video conference. So they can be in a community. They have court and trial that day in their community, but then the judge is in another city or another town, and they can do their court hearings and stuff by that way. So it does save a lot on travel, saves on cost, and it works. Can they say? So we've got the video conferencing network, and we've got all these different kind of applications running over it. Video conferencing is a big tool that we use on a regular basis. And we also use regular digital tools in other aspects of administration of communities, band administration. I'll give you an example. I just been working with someone earlier this morning, and they're having an election in North Caribou Lake, and they're doing advanced polls today. So in order to help them out, we provided them with a cell phone where they can answer phone and votes and do the advanced polling that way. So that cell phone's running over the cellular network that's in the community, and it runs through our network and our services, and we provide that in partnership with the communities. So it's kind of integrated in all aspects of everyone's kind of daily lives and their work. And I can go on and on. There's a lot of other tools that we've been using. So I'm just gonna leave it to that for now. And if you guys have any other kind of questions about what other uses we've been using it for, or how it works with what you guys are doing, then I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the last speaker I want to introduce is Denise Williams, and then I'd like each of you guys Denise and for Jeff, to share a little bit similar to what Jesse did on examples of tools that they've used or developed or seen used to address some of the disparities and the gaps, as well as develop opportunities to connect each other. So Denise serves as the Executive Director of the First Nations Technology Council, which was mandated in 2002 to ensure that all 203 First Nation communities in BC have access to the internet and capacity to utilize digital technologies to the fullest potential. Denise is Coast Salish, and I'm going to not say this right, the last one, Cowichan?
Oh, Cowichan.
Cowichan tribe.
I like Cowichan.
On Vancouver Island. She's an advocate for social justice and has spent her career seeking out opportunities to play a role in the advancement of Indigenous sovereignty and social change.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I feel like it's been an amazing week getting to know so many of you, and I just wanted to take a moment just to thank everyone for sharing stories with me and sharing laughs, and I feel really well connected to this much bigger community that shares values and shares a vision for the future for our people. So thank you so much for having me here. I feel a little bit bad because I know there's at least 20 or 30 people in the room that have already heard me go on and on about what we're doing in British Columbia. So maybe I'll try to put a different spin on it a bit. As mentioned, I work for the 203 First Nations communities in British Columbia. I report directly to our chiefs on a quarterly basis on the progress of connectivity and the use of digital and connected technologies for the advancement of nation rebuilding and sovereignty. It's challenging in British Columbia. A lot of our communities don't have adequate connectivity or cellular service. When they do, I mean, it's really expensive, and there's an incumbent, and the policies are what they are. We don't necessarily have the same kind of organization like KNET in British Columbia. All of our nations are very independent, so we don't have sort of, we're non-treaty, so we don't have kind of one large nation or 2 or 3 nations that can come together and make decisions on behalf of the whole province. It makes it a little bit more complicated. So my work has really been, over the last 13 years, I found myself at the intersection of Indigenous people, education, and technology. Like I say, 13 years ago, I worked for the First Nations Education Steering Committee, bringing a connected classrooms program into fruition. So that whole idea was, how can we connect First Nations schools that are closer to urban centers and have good connectivity and access to teachers, specifically math and science, to those nations up in northern British Columbia where they don't have access to teachers in math and science in K-12. So kids were having to move down to the southern part of the province, and at a really young age, that's a dangerous thing to do. So we were able to connect about 20 K-12 schools, and that's really where I became passionate about how technology can transform the lives of our young people and of our communities. Over the years, unfortunately, not a lot has really changed. Not a lot has advanced in the province, and I've become borderline obsessed with what the problem is. You know, it seems so basic to me, and I've said to a few people over the last couple of days, I feel like I just can't walk away from this until we've solved it. Access to the internet in 2017 is outrageous. You know, that we're talking about it in our First Nations communities in BC and your nations and the nations around the world. What I'm trying to do in British Columbia is encourage the federal and provincial government and industry to understand their role in reconciliation with Indigenous people and how their infrastructure and their power and their resources can be used to adequately resource Indigenous nations. And the important part of that is that we control that process. So although I'm not directly involved, as my colleagues here are, in actually building tools, I'm trying to literally make space for Indigenous people to come and be part of the governance and the decision-making framework in Canada and in British Columbia, so that when big initiatives come into our province, we have adequate seat and decision-making power at that table. One example is Canada's Supercluster initiative. Canada wants to be globally competitive in the tech and innovation sector. They have, understood a number of different ways that we can participate, so healthcare, automation of the resource sector, all these types of things. And so what I'm trying to do is ensure that Indigenous people are part of the governance of how the Canadian Supercluster project will take place. So in a more granular example, precision healthcare, individualized healthcare. So we know that the way that our healthcare system is set up, the way that consultations are done with people, the way that drug therapy is dictated is really for a Eurocentric audience. It's not really built for all of us. So when we think about individualized healthcare, we can start to understand how better healthcare can be provided to Indigenous people. And as an example, I don't think that this is something that can benefit Indigenous people somewhere down the line. My point is that at that decision-making governance level, the precision healthcare should be brought to First Nations first. And so that's the type of thing in Canada, that the First Nations Technology Council is trying to make space for. as well as really important digital skills development initiatives. We're launching a 5-year-long project where we've taken a look at what the labor market growth is going to look like throughout British Columbia in the technology sector. And we've mapped all of our nations. And so where we see growth in agri-tech or fintech, web development and those types of clusters, we're trying to understand how do we skill up those nations that are in those economic growth regions to be competitive in that sector. Not just competitive in that sector, but able to grow local digital economies as well. So we're embarking on that road in the new fiscal year. And I work with my colleague here, Jeff Ward, thinking about how do we get Indigenous people skilled up to the level where they can go work for a company like Animikii and learn from Jeff and learn from his colleagues and then go on to potentially launch their own businesses. So I've had the privilege of working with Jeff for a number of years and thinking about that vision for our people in British Columbia and across Canada. So I might just leave it there. But
Yeah,
thank you.
no, that's great. I would like for Jeff to be able to share some examples of some of these tools that we're talking about also.
Sure. So as a social enterprise, Animikii, we're really focused on encouraging and finding ways to support young Indigenous technologists to get into the tech career, as well as entrepreneurship. One of the programs that Denise mentioned is the Bridging to Technology Training Program. And proud to say that we were able to support the first cohort that went through and brought on a young Indigenous technologist, woman coder who, for her first example coding application through this program was a language app that she had created with one of her colleagues in the program. And she's just joined us actually full-time at Animikii. So actually, most of our Animikii team is watching the live stream. So hello back home. Can everybody say hello to Animikii? Hello. You might not be able to see, but a whole crowd was just waving at you. We primarily, the tools that we build are custom software. Using a lot of open source tools, but what we're finding in developing tools for Indigenous organizations and communities is that sometimes off-the-shelf software it isn't going to work to kind of take software and shoehorn your existing processes into that. So, one example, and I asked our team for examples of if I only had 2 or 3 projects to share, which ones. This is one of them, and it relates to health. So, Indigenous peoples in Canada, by and large, have not as positive outcomes as settler Canadians. One of our projects that we've worked on with the Provincial Health Services Authority in BC is an Indigenous cultural safety training for health professionals. So there are about 100,000 health professionals in British Columbia, and all of them now have to take this cultural safety training. It's part crash course in Canadian history that many of these health professionals never got in the education system, and part going through Indigenous ways of knowing and being through traditional medicine, and how best to support Indigenous people in the healthcare system. And so the way that they wanted to facilitate this training was through a very hands-on approach. It's led by the Indigenous Health Unit at this large provincial health organization. And they looked at many tools and how they wanted to provide support, and there wasn't anything. We looked at Moodle, we looked at similar software, and it was just easier for them to want to just build their own tool set. So that training has now expanded to Ontario, to all the health authorities there, and Manitoba as well. So we've trained already, I think, 40,000 healthcare professionals, and the feedback and transformation that these health professionals are going through is meaning better outcomes in the healthcare system for Indigenous people. So it's one project that we're very proud to have an impact at a really large scale across the country. Another healthcare related project, I guess totally on the other side of the spectrum, where with the Sanyas Indigenous Cultural Safety Training was very preventative. The other side is a training on naloxone, which is, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar, it's an injection that you can give to somebody who is experiencing an overdose of opioids. And
Okay.
of course, Indigenous people in Canada are bearing the brunt of this epidemic. And so what we helped design was an in-person training of how to administer this kit for either yourself or for somebody who's experiencing an overdose. And you take the training so that you can go home with a kit at a clinic, kind of thing. So just two examples within the healthcare system. I'll just share maybe one other example, I guess on the economic side. We're talking social and economic good. So a lot of the work that we do maybe isn't so glamorous to present it like this, but we offer a fantastic Microsoft Access to Web App Conversion Service, or a Microsoft Excel to convert to Web App service. So a lot of times what we see is people sharing data sets on an Excel file or their local computer and sort of sharing it throughout and emailing who's got the latest copy, that sort of thing. So there's a program that supports Indigenous entrepreneurs in British Columbia, where an entrepreneur would go to a Indigenous financial institution, make a loan application, apply for a grant. The process which used to happen was they would enter the data, they would print it, they would fax the 10-page application to a central processing organization in Kamloops, and they would retype in the info into their system. Then they would print it out, fax it to the provincial government, and you could imagine the amount of human error that might happen, especially when you're working with decimal points and numbers. So we centralized all that into a web app, and everybody works on the same data set, and that was our access to web app conversion service. As well, we've done other ones for that tracks connectivity in the province of British Columbia to the Pathways to Technology website. You can actually go there, pathways2technology.ca, and see the current status of all connectivity in BC. And again, that was managed using an Excel file that was shared around, and now we have First Nations Health Authority and other groups that are collaborating on the same data set, and as soon as that data is updated, the map is updated with that as well. So just a few examples. We've worked with so many different organizations over so many different sectors, and that's what we love doing. We love supporting everybody's cause, everybody's mission. What their mission is, that's our mission as well, and we just support through technology. Mayor Redfern said yesterday, talking about technologists and how Inuit people are technologists. In order to survive there, and many Indigenous communities across Turtle Island, we needed to be technologists, and that continues to today. And our goal at Animikii, our larger vision, is to be a really good example of how you can leverage technology for economic and social good, and really be, I think we can become a force to be reckoned with. And I would love to see a stereotype of our people to be, when people find out you're Native, oh, you must be into technology. You know, I think, I think I'd be fine with that stereotype. Thank you.
No, that's right. I think one of the challenges when we were all sort of catching up early on about how do we talk about leveraging digital tools for social and economic good, because examples are across the board, right? It's from basic application to systemizing processes that could make our lives better, more efficient, as well as capturing really important data that as Native people and Indigenous people, oftentimes we don't keep ourselves, gets mined out to other organizations. And so from that side all the way down to, you know, what are our young people creating to solve their local challenges or their personal challenges? And I feel like when we think about leveraging these digital tools, you know, what we're really saying is how do we indigenize these concepts of digital space to be able to shape and inform how we want to see the future of ourselves. And I really appreciated Brandon's statement about, you know, are we going to see how these digital tools affect us in 100 years or 1,000 years? And so for me, I just want to say thanks to this panel. I know it was sort of, how do we get there? How do we talk about the examples? But I feel like the examples shared really do show the breadth of opportunity here. One question I would have for all of you guys is, how do you use technology to bridge the conversation with your elders? I feel like, how do you help the elders understand, or more importantly, how do you bring the elders' perspectives to technology to ensure it is indigenized? I open up to anyone. Jesse, do you want to start first?
Yeah, sure. So with our elders, you know, they're very social. So our elders, they love social networking. Like my father, my grandparents, the aunts and uncles, the ones I consider elders, majority of them actually use a lot of social networking nowadays, and they do use a lot of the tools where they can actually use their language. So, you know, for example, like video conferencing, or more commonly, people use FaceTime to talk with each other. And these digital tools let people visit, you know, across big distances. You know, for example, my aunt, who was in the hospital before, would visit my uncle, who was back home, you know, through FaceTime and Facebook. So those tools they bridge barriers, like language barriers. Like, it's not just English. You know, people can speak in their own language, which is very important, is using our own language in communication. So leveraging those digital tools that let you use any language you want is fairly important. And those mainstream tools, even though, you know, even though they're mainstream tools like Facebook, Netflix, or Google and all that stuff, they're still very useful tools for many people, because there is a lot of support, so people can get support by their family members or whoever, and then that's kind of our elders' entry point to technology. And then once they're there, you can bring in other things too. Like we do a lot of land-based mapping and traditional names. So we use Google Maps in order to bring that up on a computer, and we do interviews with elders to highlight certain place names, and you know, they can point out this area, you know, this lake is called this because you know, they'll have a story behind it. You know, for example, we, like in Sandy Lake on everyone has these funny names for different places. And in Sandy Lake, on one of our lakes, there's this point you go around.
Hey, Jesse, I'm so sorry to cut you off right there. We're running out of time. I'm so sorry, but
all right.
I think,
So,
are we out of time? We're good? Absolutely. Yes. No. Sorry about that. Did anyone want to try to answer that also from the panel?
I was going to say something similar to what Jesse was talking about, and really speaking with elders, it's always been about the connection with youth and with our young people who aren't living in the communities, and a lot about decolonization of online space. And when we partnered with First Voices to create a keyboard app so that you could actually type in your language and so that you could text between each other in your language, that kind of stuff got elders more so involved. The most important thing for us is making sure that elders have a strong presence in our vision of how technology will be implemented in our communities. And we've done digital scrapbooking projects. Any kind of project that brings them back together with their young people is how we've approached it. Yeah.
Thank you. Questions from the audience?
Back to the elders. I can understand how way up in the north, where people, it's hard to get around. There aren't ways to get around sometimes and so forth. So I can see how the internet, I mean, it's almost like it would come like glue because it just facilitates so much. And I'm thinking about our societies here. We don't have that problem of distance in the way that you do. And I'm an elder, so I talk with a lot of elders, and there isn't a lot of use of the internet by elders. I mean, that's not part of the conversation that is had. And I'm concerned that about the sociological impact of that over many decades or whatever, that a segment of our population is not involved and doesn't have access. And I was especially impressed by your descriptions of the connecting between elders and youth. We talk about that all the time. Get them together, they'll change the world or whatever. It doesn't happen that frequently. But so that there needs to be, it says to me that there needs to be something built physically that people can touch. And so that it gains meaning that way rather than just being an older person and passing on your wisdom, whatever that is, to whomever. And so, I don't know that I have a question, I just have a wonderment of how what can happen.
Would anybody else like to ask another question?
Good morning. My name is Patuk Glenn, and I'm from the Arctic Slope Regional Corporation in Alaska. Listening to you speak, I began to wonder what had inspired you to pursue a career in technology, and maybe what are some suggestions that you have to encourage our youth to pursue a career in technology. We're from a place where our fiber optic cable is getting ready to go live in less than 30 days, and it's going to go from 2 to 100. And, it's exciting, it's fun, but we're really curious of how we can encourage our kids to pursue technology and, get that good stereotype. Oh, you must be into technology. You're native, right?
I thought I might just thank our elder for your comments and those comments about wonderment. I think they're really important. And to your point about how do we get more young people, stepping forward and being those exemplars and taking those leadership roles on, because they're not easy. We're talking about, it's a bit of a sharp edge of innovation, and it's challenging. And I think that the words that were spoken to me by an elder about 3 or 4 years ago was that it was, not shy to tell me, it was my responsibility to ensure that I respect all of the people who came before me, and all the people who will come after me, and to recognize that our people are global experts on innovation, adaptation, technological advancement, resilience, that it is not just a choice, but it is rather our responsibility to ensure that in a digital age, we are still providing one another with that kind of vision for the future. And I take that very seriously, that responsibility. And I think that's what ties us together. Those teachings, that wisdom, those ways of being and knowing, they are still relevant. And it's so important that we're listening to our community members and to our elders and figuring out how to shape that into this technological online environment.
Jesse, did you want to respond?
Yeah, sure. What got me interested in technology early on, like when I was a teenager, first obvious thing was video games. but on top of that, like, personally, I'm an artist, and once I found out that you could use technology and computers to create art, and not just any kind of art, you can create two-dimensional art or three-dimensional art or videos or animations. That got me interested in technology and being able to use that to tell our stories. And one of my earliest projects in university was a multimedia project retelling one of our ancient stories, which is the legend of Ayash. And this story was originally told by my grandfather, passed on to my father, and then I retold it digitally and using digital tools. And that's always been my personal inspiration for technology is using it for our culture, our storytelling. And for my family, it's been passed down to my kids, and they're all artists. They're all amazing artists. I've got two kids that are awesome digital graphic artists. I got one that's an animator, and he loves doing animations and just amazing work. So that's common. A common theme in my family anyway is using it for art, and that's our passion. And using it that way, we can spread that passion and interest to everyone else, other youth, and they can see how we use it in other ways. So that's my story.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have time for one more response?
Yes, Vanessa, if I could, I'd like to add a couple points here to help complement what's being dialogued. What was the examples that were given, telemedicine and education? I want to stress that these areas actually come with the amount of funding, right? And so have you experienced that like in the United States we have E-rate, and then we have telehealth, right? And those can all be a source of funding, into bringing out capacity into a remote area. When using the tools, especially with education and with health, you can identify a source of funding for helping, sustain your network, right? And so that's a very important area that I wanted to make sure that was emphasized. But I want to take the question on capacity building, because that's a real issue, right? And I think in the event of capacity building, I think security, other types of those types of awareness is very important. And then how do we dialogue with tradition? How do we dialogue? Traditional, right? I mean, that's a big word, right? And so that means a lot of things. That's just not language and culture. I mean, it's the whole aspect of a village or of your community. So that's a very important dialogue that needs to begin. I would thank you.
I know Jeff would like to answer that too.
Yes, question on how I got into technology. I actually didn't want to be a technologist. My entire life growing up, I wanted to be a doctor. Both my parents were nurses. And then in late 1990s, internet was becoming a thing, and I was dabbling. And I was also that kid causing havoc on the chat rooms, messing up stuff from the previous talk on security. And the worst thing happened for my health career is somebody paid me to make them a website when I was in high school, $500, and all hopes of medicine and the first doctor in our family sort of went out the window. And really it was that entrepreneurial bug that had bitten me that sort of provided that encouragement to get to learn more about coding. And then I went to Silicon Valley for a few years through the dot-com boom and then the bust. And I was paid way too much money for an 18-year-old kid down there. And it was a very capitalistic environment, very materialistic. And when I moved back in 2001, you know, there wasn't a lot of people supporting our communities, our indigenous communities, through technology. And it was a very lonely time as a technologist, indigenous technologist at that time. And now through amazing programs like the coding program that you've mentioned and Bridging to Technology and so many amazing programs that are happening, it's not as lonely of a space. There's a room of technologists here, for example. And I mentioned our team who is back home, sort of holding the fort down. You know, I am supported now by an amazing team of indigenous technologists, and there's just going to be more and more of us. And I think many of us, entrepreneurs and technologists here, have that social focus. And so I feel like through business and through social enterprise, that's where you can have a huge economic impact and social impact.
Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah. Thanks. Just to the point on funding, this is like, yeah, it's my whole life. So, you know, I'm not too bad at it, but I just wanted to raise that when, you know, how in Canada, when we seek out federal and provincial funding, it comes with a lot of strings. And to Brandon's point as well, you know, it will allow you to build out 3 to 5 years into the future. And if you can tick all the boxes really well, you can renew for another 5 years. And that's not how you build nations. And that's not how you build capacity. And it's not how you leave legacy and make real impact. And one of the things that I've learned over the years, and this is a great place for millennials to fit in and young people, is they question everything. They question the system. They have no problem telling you what's wrong with it. And that is such a strength of our upcoming generation. I think it's really important that we challenge the frameworks in which funding comes into our nations and to our people always, and we start doing our best to redefine what success is in programs and how that funding comes to us and how we report back on it. I think that for me is the challenge of our time, and I think it will lead to ultimate self-determination for us to dictate ultimately how we receive funding from the government.
Hear, hear. I know we had one question from Brandon. I'm so sorry, you're in the back too.
So to add to what everyone's saying, what their amazing answers, how I get kids or younger folks involved in technology is by telling them that it provides opportunities beyond, for example, like signing up for the military or working in an oil field, or things that are detrimental to our indigenous lifeways and concepts of self-determination. Not that I judge those who do join the military and work in resource extraction industries, because I have relatives who worked in coal mining, I have relatives who are in the military, because those are the only opportunities that they had. But technology offers so much more for the youth, especially in isolated areas like where I was from. Technology offered me, being a technologist, which I really like. You're advocating for a new stereotype for Native peoples that were technologists or that were hackers, or like it'd be awesome to have a stereotype that's like that as well. That we're able to build and innovate using modern tools and technologies. So that's what I often say to kids who come into our info shop. When I offer them free internet access and free access to materials, not just radical Native literature. I also give them programming books, algebra books, and tell them, hey, this is just, technology provides more opportunities for you to have a good and healthy life, and not only just for yourself, but for your families and communities as well.
Thank you very much. Anything else we want to add? Is
There was one question I feel like I overlooked. The gentleman in the back in the red. I want to make sure he gets his voice.
Okay. Thank
I guess I'm kind of curious about all of your thoughts about the potential of smart contracts and how that might be recreated through First Nations perspective on that, like how blockchain and smart contracts can really amplify the potential, and at the same time being aware of some of the negative effects of digital media on like teenagers and youth. Like how do you think about how do we straddle all those things and work together, non-native people and native people, for that?
So that's a huge, huge important topic. Brian, I'm going to let you say how much time we have to address it, because I want to know that answer personally. What do you think?
you. I'm not sure whether I don't know what a smart contract is. I don't know, that's that would be something we want to clarify. But we do have a time constraint. What we want to do, we want to have a more dialogue in this area. So let's wrap up the panel.
Okay.
Right, and then let's say thank you to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
We are definitely going to continue this dialogue. We have time for networking now, so that basically means we have time for coffee, right? So let's have some coffee, and let's